So hi everyone, today we are going to speak about quite interesting question about a really bright personality in the field of esoteric and spirituality, Madame Blavatsky, great Russian author, esoteric guru. Madame Blavatsky was born 1831 and passed away 1891. Actually, she was 60 years old when she passed away. According to the modern standards, not too much. She's extremely famous because of two basic reasons. First of all, she's the founder of Theosophical society. And this society actually has three main branches. Adyar in South India, and then in London and New York. And in that time, second half of 19th century and first half of 20th century, Theosophical society was extremely influential. I mean, all spiritual seekers, esoteric people, mystics, free thinkers, whatever, any person in Europe and North America who was just in any sense involved in any spiritual and mystical and esoteric process was under influence of this huge Theosophical society. And second thing which Madame Blavatsky really done it and which was really great is the publication of a number of books, especially two of them are famous. And of course, first of all, we remember her because of the Secret Doctrine. Okay, what was actually special about Madame Blavatsky and why in the 21st century we have to speak about her, we remember her, what is really special? First of all, she was a very interesting and unusual lady, Russian lady from aristocratic family who actually created modern esoteric tradition. Let me remind you about that time. Actually, 19th century, misunderstanding between East and West, cultural and religious, was huge. Most of the Western people consider spiritual tradition of India, Southeast Asia, China, Thailand, Japan, just as the pagan and absolutely ignorant. Mostly people in Europe at that time in 19th century didn't know that Vedic and Buddhist and Taoist traditions of the Oriental world are so huge and advanced that for the Western world it's really a question how to learn, but not how to come and teach. Yes, at that time in 19th century, Christian missionaries, it was a huge stream of Christian missionaries who visited India, Thailand, South China, Japan, and for them so-called local traditions were like pagan and ignorant. Most of the missionaries and most of the just Westerns didn't understand the ancient roots of that traditions and of course huge spiritual value of all that. Somehow, Madame Blavatsky understood the point. She was really one of the first, if not the first, who understood that Oriental world is actually, you know, the place of huge wisdom, ancient traditions, and Vedic and Buddhist wisdom is a huge source of spirituality. And actually, she somehow understood in the middle of 19th century that you know, we don't need to go to India or Southeast Asia and to teach them this or that kind of Christianity, but actually the situation is totally different. We have to try to learn from them Vedic and Buddhist wisdom. Okay, now in the 21st century we speak about the world where men and women are equal in rights. Of course, even now in the 21st century we discuss about certain problems, but can you imagine 19th century young Russian aristocratic actually girl, Madame Blavatsky, she started her pilgrimage and she went to Europe, England, France, Germany. She went to Egypt and later on to India and even Tibet. At that time, for the young girl to travel all you know, different countries, including Oriental countries, was really challenging. Okay, she was the one who started this huge synthesis of ancient and modern spiritual traditions, Oriental and Western. She, symbolically speaking, constructed this huge symbolical bridge between West and East. And, you know, actually the spiritual and the cultural dialogue started exactly with Theosophical society. That's the reason why for 100 years, I mean second half of 19th century and first half of 20th century, Theosophical society was absolutely influential, and as I mentioned, all Western people, European and North American, who were involved in any kind of spiritual quest and what we call sadhana, okay, they were connected with Theosophical society, read books printed by Theosophical society, and mostly just became even members. You know, honestly speaking, I don't think that now in the end of 20th century and in the beginning of 21st century, Theosophical society is really influential, and honestly speaking, nobody even interested in this society anymore. Actually, it continued its existence in different countries in Europe, in the United States, of course, in India as well. But of course, influence is not there because, of course, the brightness of Theosophical society was strongly related to Madame Blavatsky herself. So personality of the founder was extremely important. Yeah, okay, Theosophical society not important anymore for our culture. But the secret doctrine written by Madame Blavatsky is a kind of esoteric Bible even now. It's extremely difficult and complicated symbolical book. Really, you know, it's a great source of wisdom and knowledge. Actually, how it's happened that Madame Blavatsky, Elena Blavatsky, let us be more exact, wrote this book and, okay, created Theosophical society and all other things which happen in your life. How it's happened? Basically, she met a number of highly advanced Himalayan masters, and two of them especially important. And we know actually the names of that two most important masters, and one of them is Mahatma Maurya, and second is Mahatma Kuthumi. Okay, all her life, Madame Blavatsky was under scandals and suspicious, discussion because of number of reasons. One of them was that she was actually a person with a huge supernatural power, clairvoyance, ability to materialize objects, to speak with the spirits, etc., etc. And of course, many people didn't believe in the fact that she is really may do so. Many people suppose at that time that she was just a cheating crowd. Another huge reason why people at that time in 19th century were suspicious about Madame Blavatsky was exactly personality of these two great Himalayan masters, Mahatma Maurya, or sometimes pronunciation is Moraya, and the second one is Mahatma Kuthumi. And some people suppose, even right now, I mean in the beginning of 21st century, that actually both of that Mahatma Gurus just invention by Madame Blavatsky herself. And discussion going on even right now, can we believe that these great mystics, great masters exist, or maybe this is just a fantasy and a pure creation by Madame Blavatsky? People who are strongly against the idea that these masters really exist ask a very simple question. How it's possible that before Madame Blavatsky nobody knew about Mahatma Maurya or Mahatma Moraya and Mahatma Kuthumi? How it's possible that just Madame Blavatsky, she was the first person who told to the public about the existence of these two huge, great gurus? Another huge, great reason for the doubts is actually the impossibility to meet that Mahatma Gurus. I mean to say, if you know about certain guru and may go and meet him or her, then it's okay, easy and clear that this guru really exists. But what about these Himalayan masters? It's not easy to meet them, and even some great yogis were not able to meet them. Then the question is, okay, if it's not possible to meet them, maybe they are not exist at all. Okay, I myself absolutely sure that Mahatma Maurya and Mahatma Kuthumi are real gurus and they really exist in Himalayas. Of course, it is not necessary to fantasize that they all the time stay in Himalayas, because actually even Madame Blavatsky herself mentioned that they partially stay in Tibet and can stay in India, for example, in Rajasthan area. So actually even Madame Blavatsky number of times actually met Mahatma Gurus in London. So I mean it's very much possible that right now, when we just now discuss all that bunch of questions, Mahatma Gurus can stay in Paris, in New York, in any city of the world, and meet disciples, work with the people. There are few reasons why I think that Mahatma Gurus are real. One of them is that Many disciples and just friends of Madame Blavatsky actually met this Mahatma Gurus personally, and even next generation of the masters and mystics, they also met Mahatma Gurus. I mean to say, to meet them extremely difficult but not impossible. For example, great Russian mystic and artist Nicholas Roerich and his wife Elena Roerich, they also met Mahatma Gurus. So we have actually many people who may witness about, reality of that Mahatma Gurus. Apart from that, the creation of this wonderful and mysterious book, which is the main masterpiece of Madame Blavatsky, and that is The Secret Doctrine. It's, this book itself is the proof of reality of Mahatma Gurus, because Blavatsky herself, she told that this book is written, physically by her, but really it was dictated by this Mahatmas, and it was a pure and a great example of channeling. And she herself told to the public that she can't understand all details of the secret doctrine. Can you imagine you are writing a book and you are not able to understand the meaning of the book completely? That was the case with Madame Blavatsky, because actually she was writing the secret doctrine physically, but it was a pure channeling from the masters, Mahatma Maurya and Mahatma Kuthumi, and that's the reason why she was writing physically, but really speaking, didn't know the meaning of the message completely. That's the reason why she told that to her disciples, actually, that, the future generations of readers will understand more and than I may understand about the meaning and the message of this book. When I learn about life of Madame Blavatsky, it's really amazing. She was a hero, she was brave, she was a spiritually crazy lady, because we can't even imagine 19th century the world which is totally different from our world which we have right now. And this in the beginning actually girl, then young lady, then middle-aged lady, was jumping from one part of the world to another, just from London to New York, from New York to Egypt, then from Egypt to India, and then to Tibet, learning different mystical traditions. And she was really brave. And in the middle of her life, she became a Buddhist. Okay, for the modern people to become Buddhist, it's even cool and, nothing special. But in the 19th century, when Western world was strictly Christian and, in a sense, Jewish, of course, some Jewish communities and some Christian communities existed in Europe and North America, and, for the young lady or for middle-aged lady to become Buddhist, it was something outside of the box completely. We're not sure exactly how it's happened. The main possibility is that she became Buddhist in Sri Lanka, but quite possible that she could become Buddhist in India itself or even in Tibet. By the way, her first attempt to penetrate Tibet was unsuccessful, and only when she actually met Mahatma Gurus she was able to penetrate or go to inside the Tibet as a country, and she spent first time something like 7 years and a second time something like 10 years there. Can you imagine? And she was learning different kinds of philosophical teachings and meditation. Okay, in the Buddhist tradition, they have three main branches. One of them is a Theravada, the second one is Mahayana, and the third one Vajrayana. The question is, what kind of Buddhism actually was tradition which became personal religion for Madame Blavatsky, and I think it's difficult to put her inside this or that branch only. Well, she became Buddhist, but it's if she became Buddhist, most probably in Sri Lanka, which is the land of Theravada Buddhist tradition. But then she spent years and years in Tibet, which is the land of Vajrayana Buddhist tradition. So we can say that actually Madame Blavatsky was a Buddhist practitioner, but really it was a synthesis anyway. I think that extremely important mission of Madame Blavatsky for the West, for the Europe and the United States, is introduction of Guru tradition. Actually, Western people, Europeans and Americans, are fond of freedom, independence, and the question of Guru is really not easy one. What does mean Guru? It means you have to follow certain person, but the question is, what about your personal freedom of choice and all that kind of intellectual, spiritual, in any kind of freedom? So to follow Guru for the Westerner, it's not easy job. Okay, let me remind you that actually for the Russian mystical and religious tradition, to follow Guru is very easy, because Russian Orthodox Church actually based on Guru tradition. Of course, the word itself, Guru, is Sanskrit, and in Russian Christian tradition we never use such a word like Guru. We call it Starce, but the meaning is, direct translation is elders. But Starce doesn't mean old guy or old monk, and Starce, the person who may be in a position of Starce or Starets, can be young person, can be a monk or nun. It's a state of consciousness, it's a spiritual level. And the Russian Orthodox Christianity, in all kinds of actually Orthodox Christianity in Russia, because we have like Old Believers Church, New Believers Church, everywhere we have starts. It means Guru tradition is the well known for the Russian spiritual practitioners. But for the Western Christian tradition, for the Catholic Church, Protestant Church, Anglican Church, Baptist Church, all that religious backgrounds for the Westerners, Guru tradition is not so clear. And of course, priests, doesn't matter of like a Catholic priest or Protestant or Anglican priest, in a sense, it's not exactly Guru, it's a priest. And, the cultural environment of the Western religion tradition, which is, Christianity after all, it's such that it's not so easy to understand the meaning of the guru principle, and maybe for the Jewish people in Europe and in the United States, because of tradition of rabbi, slightly easier to understand the meaning of the guru tradition. Okay, and in the 19th century, Madame Blavatsky appeared in front of a Western world, and she actually emphasized, like, come on guys, and all spiritual knowledge and blessings and philosophy and real, genuine, proper techniques of meditation. In a short way, I mean, everything what is real and important for spirituality is okay. The source of all that are gurus, and you have to obey these gurus. You have to establish very subtle connection with the gurus, and then only you can really to learn something and apply as your personal meditation, personal contemplation. So the importance of the gurus was really breakthrough message by Blavatsky to the Western people of that time. Okay, let me complete this video for today. Actually, I think that we'll come back to Blavatsky tradition and her heritage more and more. But you know what I may say, that even if you know nothing about Madame Blavatsky, or maybe you not sure that feel any real connection with her. Anyway, please remember, all modern Western spirituality based on actually what Madame Blavatsky started in the middle of 19th century, and it means all traditions which came into existence, which were created much later or just came from different Oriental countries like India, Tibet, China, Japan. They came to the West. All of them came after Theosophical Society, and Theosophical Society and the secret doctrine by Madame Blavatsky, that was the real foundation. And I think it's a very interesting to learn this spiritual space, and it's not just interesting, but extremely useful for the spiritual practitioners even now. So God bless you. See you next time.